let's break it down. Explain yourselves. Who are you all, and what regions are you from, etc. Like, I don't know the appropriate questions to ask you without sounding like an asshole. So you're gonna have to assume I'm an asshole anyway, and just explain it to me.
You want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. Think I'm a fourth Lakota Sioux Indian. My grandfather he was born on a reservation. He has land there. My great something grandfather is supposedly um, General Sitting Bull. Like, this might just be my family making up shit. I don't know. But supposedly he's General Sitting Bull, who is the general that killed General Custard in, I think, the Battle of Little Creek, which is, like, apparently a really famous battle.
Yes.
Um,
Very famous battle.
So, like I said, I have nothing to substantiate that. It very well could be, my family members just making up crap. And I know I'm definitely, Native American, though. I have some relics from the reservation that my grandpa was born on, and they're all pretty cool. So, and Lakota Sioux Indians are in South Dakota, by the way. So that's
South
pretty
Dakota.
much me.
All right.
Yeah.
You want to go next, or should I?
Go for it, Tandy.
Okay, I'm Spokane Indian from Washington, and
Mhm.
like him, I'm a quarter. My grandfather was born on the reservation there, owns land there, and I go there to help my grandfather and his parents, like, just like cut wood for them and stuff.
Cool.
Very
And
cool.
Drew?
Hey, I'm quarter Native American. I am a 1/8 Grand Traverse Band of Odawa and Ojibwa Indians, and I'm 1/4 Sault Ste. Marie, Chippewa Indians. As just to make a clearance, there is like Ojibwa and Chippewa is basically the exact same tribe. It's just that the French stressed like their pronouncement of the word, and then there was the native pronouncement of the word. So there's just like a slight corruption.
Cool. So, I'm sorry, what region was that again?
Oh, the Odawa and the Ojibwa peoples are both a part of the Algonquin Nation, and that is in northern Canada and the northern United States. For
Wow.
instance, my peoples are the Chippewa peoples are from northern Wisconsin and the UP of Michigan and Sault Ste. Marie, and then the other people that I'm from is from basically Traverse City area in Michigan.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool. So, so normally we have like a specific ethnicity or nationality that we can work with and just be like, why is your nationality awesome? But with Native Americans, it's a little bit different because you're all separated groups that didn't. My understanding is we're pretty much separate and happy that way until you all kind of got fucked over by the same people and now you're semi-banded together.
I mean, they're like tribes were at war with each other for territory and resources and all of that.
Well, of
So
course.
I mean, like, we weren't like, we definitely, like you said, we weren't united, but we all had our own little groups, and we were for the most part happy with our little groups. And
Right.
occasionally there would be a dispute where someone farmed on someone else's land or something like that, I guess, or hunted someone else's buffalo, and that would cause some problems. But yeah, for the most part, we're just like a group or like a collective of groups that lived in the same area.
Okay.
I would say some groups are like more warfaring than others. Like for example, the guy who said he's Lakota Sioux, they were a very warfaring nation. But
Yes,
for
we
me,
were.
the Spokane, they were all really peaceful up here. It wasn't until you got to like the Shoshone in Idaho that you started getting into warfaring natives.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, the Ojibwe and the Odawa were definitely. I mean, well, it would definitely depend on the clan that you were in for the most part. For the Ojibwe, I was part of the Crane clan, which is like the intellectual clan, and then for the Odawa, I was part of the Bear clan, and they were more of like warriors, and they held pride in being warriors, but it wasn't specifically limited to that. I mean, it was kind of like a cast of honor, but only when it necessarily needed to come. Otherwise, they would like just assist the people.
All right. Cool. Cool. So how would you guys like to approach this? Because you got one. I think it was Drew. You approached me. Was like, hey, do you want to do Native American section instead of instead of something else? Totally down for it. Love to, but I'm not sure how to approach because I can't. You guys are all going to have very separate experiences.
Right. May I just slightly take over for? Is there two of us here? Two
There's
other
three.
people?
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
three of you.
Well, how has your
Actually, you know what? We're about to make that four. We're about to bring in another.
Oh
Okay.
shit!
Well, how
I
has the other three of you guys, like your families, endeavored to keep this tradition going on? Like, I know my family, my great grandfather, he specifically, we were from northern Michigan and northern Wisconsin. He specifically instructed my grandfather to be white as possible. Like, don't go out and, like, get tan, because he was really afraid of the Native American boarding schools, like all those acts coming into play and stealing his family away from them. So I guess what I want to ask is, what has your tribes gone through to bring you to where you are?
I would say on the Spokane reservation, back in like the 30s and 40s, there was a uranium mine on the reservation, and so a lot
Oh,
of them
wow.
were working in there mining uranium from there for our nuclear program during World War II. And so recently they've started suing the government because they are claiming they all got cancer from that, and there's that. But as regards for like heirlooms and stuff, everyone on the reservation is really, they keep to themselves. They don't like to tell other people they have heirlooms because they're afraid of other people trying to take them. And
Oh
I'd say-
yeah, I mean, for sure.
I to chime in a little bit. I'm not really big historian on all of this, so I don't know exactly everything about my tribe. And to bring up heirlooms, I do have a good bit of collection inherited from my grandfather of our stuff that he found on the reservation that he was born on, like a peace pipe, stone mallet, some beadwork, and a bunch of stuff like that, which is really cool. I can actually show it if you guys want. But I know one of the legacies that we've inherited is my grandpa, since he was born on the reservation, he automatically got land. So he owns land in North Dakota on the reservation, and that's just something that I thought was like really cool. We don't use it for anything. I think he like sells it out to some cattle ranchers or something, but I think that's pretty cool that everyone born on the reservation gets their own plot of land.
So it's not just like a plot for a house. It's like a sizable
well,
plot.
you can
It's
use
a
it.
sizable plot. Yeah.
Okay.
But in
it is
regards
his
to that,
land.
like the Spokane Indians, like they were given that too. But on ours, I know it was specifically given to them by the government. Like the tribe didn't decide who got what.
Mhm.
The government said you get this part of the reservation, and so yeah, I think it was. My
That might
family
very
got
well be
80 acres, I think.
That might be
That's
how it went down, as the government did it as some sort of like, hey, we fucked up with this whole, taking your land thing, so here you go. That might be it. I don't know. I don't know the exact specifics of it.
Oh, wait a minute, that land that we gave you that looked totally worthless. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's uranium underneath that. You mind moving again, please?
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
like they
about
had
that.
from like
Sorry.
the 1940s to the 1960s, they had like an Indian termination policy, and that
Mhm.
was like all the Native Americans would be better off if they were white. So from then on, they tried to take all the Native Americans and make them white to the point where they would send them off to boarding schools and would never get contact with their family. So, I mean, like, what do you do with that?
My grandfather, again, he was actually in the boarding schools. So he, like, to hear the stories now is like really cool. You weren't allowed to speak, your native language. You weren't allowed to, do anything that looked, remotely fishy. Of, you know, you're not allowed to cry because you haven't seen your family. You're not allowed to,
Right.
talk to other people about that stuff. And like they were so strict on you. It's crazy.
Right.
So,
Like
that's
my family, my great grandfather he worked on a lumber mill in northern Michigan, and their Native Americans are basically treated as shit. So my grandfather, he specifically instructed him to be as white as possible. Like he changed the pronunciation of our last name. He made sure that my grandfather never participated in Native American traditions, and he made sure that he was enculturated as possible. And as a result, my grandfather would never go out in like I don't know, like clothing that was not long sleeved because he hated being tan. And I mean, the whole point of it was so that they wouldn't come to our family and say, "You guys aren't American enough. We need to take away your children." Because my great grandfather was so scared of having his family stolen away from him.
It's fucked up.
I mean, I can chime in a little bit. So Neil popped me in the call because I wanted to be involved. My name's Cody. I'm 50% Mohawk, so we're from upstate New York. And I like my last name is Connors. My father's name was Connors, and then my grandfather adopted the name Connors before that.
I mean, last name doesn't mean shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, but the thing is like, when you bring it up now, you're like, oh, I'm Native American. They're like, well, Connors doesn't sound like, if I were to pluck, if I was writing a script for a movie and I had a bunch of Native American characters, like Connors wouldn't be a typical last name. And it's because it was the name you picked when you wanted to stir the least.
Right. I mean, my last name is technically Madagami. That's not actually how you pronounce it. Nobody knows how you pronounce it because my great grandfather took the last name and anglicized it because he wanted to make sure that nobody in his family was picked on by the BIA.
This could be a long hour, Neil, man. I don't know what you fucking signed up for, man.
Dude, I had to. You know what? This is going to be the interesting. I mean, not to say the other ones aren't interesting, but like the others are all going to be more or less in a similar vein. Like this is this unified people. Here's some cultural aspects. Here's some interesting aspects. Here's some cool food things. Here's some cool language things. But like the history that we're talking about here is very different. It's more of just like people being
recent.
It's very recent and it's very brutal, and it is like not there are few pleasant aspects. I'm not trying to say that there's no pleasant accents, but it's like a history marked by suffering and being
total props
screwed.
to you for even bringing it up. I mean,
Yeah, man.
like most people, they're like, "Hey, American history, let's skip over the entire genocide and basically start at Civil War." You know?
Yeah, well, that's kind of what we're taught in schools. Like it's there were these Indians that were here when the natives when we landed,
Exactly.
and then we fought a Revolutionary War, and then we fought a Civil War, and and then
It's
someone
like,
says what happened to
remember
Indians, like they got
the
kicked out of the
Swedes
way. And,
that were like, "No, we never learned anything about our history," and like they just kind of ignored it. I mean, it's the same deal.
yeah, So when you came to me being like, "Hey, do you want to do Native American history?" I was like, "Hell yeah, let's." But I don't know how to approach this because like even though I live in the United States and have my entire life, my knowledge of Native American culture is so slim that I don't really feel comfortable taking charge here. Although I'm happy to provide some structure if need be.
I was just super surprised you found like two other people. I mean, I mean seriously.
Yeah, so am I. I was like, oh, might just be him, but we'll see how it goes. So, well, what do you, all right, so the common theme that you guys are all going to have is the BIA. And for those of you that may not know what that is the Bureau of Indian Affairs. It's the U.S. government's subdivision that is supposed to be dealing with the native population. Thus, they call it the Bureau of Indian
Racist
Affairs.
department.
And they are not known for really getting anything done ever.
Can I complain first?
You may complain first.
All right. So anyway, sorry, I bumped my mic. So anyway, my grandfather and his brother are literally the same amount of Native American as you can imagine. His brother registered technically with the Potawatomis, and the Potawatomi wrote down my great grandmother as part of their tribe, and she got she was supposed to be owed millions and millions of dollars, thanks Syntax. But in the end, she got paid $15 for being Potawatomi, and in the end, the rest of my family got discarded, and they weren't allowed in the Ottawa tribe. And my grandfather's brother, his entire family got put into our proper tribe because he signed them up. But even though that the we share the same blood quantum, we're still being screwed over because of some paperwork when my great grandmother got, I don't know, like 10% of her reparations. I guess like $15 was like a ton of money in 1900, but it basically comes down to that we can't become a part of this tribe. We're stuck being a part of the Sioux tribe, even though that we have the same blood quantum, and we can't access any of those, like hunting licenses, fishing licenses, casino profits, land profits, etc. I mean, it basically comes down to they won't even look at it. Like, we've tried so many times, they don't give a fuck. Like, the VIA is basically there to be bureaucracy.
Well, it is a shit show. The distribution of wealth among tribes is oftentimes, I think, misunderstood. Even between members of tribes.
I mean, let's be fair. Like, I have only ever been to my reservation, which is obviously like a sample size of one. But I mean, it's like a favela, man.
It's not. It's wealth among tribes is it's like a very confusing thing. I think one of the biggest myths I heard, like in high school and in college, was the idea that like just because of your heritage, like the government's sending you checks like every month. I don't know where that started, but I'd like to do my best to dismiss that right now. That's certainly not. That's definitely not true for most people with indigenous heritage.
I've never heard that before.
I've never heard of that before.
In Southern California, so it's very interesting. I grew up in Southern California where there were a lot of indigenous tribes. So I grew up just outside of Palm Springs, which is a very just sort of affluent, wealthy community in general. And then nearest casinos were Native American casinos, so everyone sort of presumed that those families were wealthy, and that was largely because the tribe themselves that ran the casinos that did very well for themselves redistributed the money amongst their tribe. So in upstate New York, where my reservation is, the local casino is called Mohawk Bingo Palace, which could probably do some, it could probably use some rebranding, make it a little sexier to bring in other other tourists. So that was just one thing that I wanted to address, because I heard that, as I crept into high school and I was going to college, I was like, oh man, you just have to be made for life, and that's certainly not the case. And I find like stories like yours where there are certain things that were, either taken away from your family 100 or so years ago, or things that you are still owed that aren't accounted for, tend to be more. You tend to run into situations more. You tend to run into those situations more frequently than you do sort of the situations where like there is an abundance of wealth around. It tends to be very rarely that the casino is in the right place on the interstate, because your reservation is haphazardly next to the interstate that drives a lot of traffic to the casino.
Yeah, I mean, what my family is basically fighting for right now is recognition. I mean, it doesn't really matter if we're a part of the Odawa or the Ojibwa tribe. I mean, it's just the fact that our family has been with this same tribe for the whole time, and if this one person has gotten like 10% of the reparations that they should have, why am I counted in a different tribe, and why can't I be a part of my heritage? I mean, that's why like my family is so upset.
Are you? Have you ever? So you, so you and I have largely been the two talking. Has everyone else been able to apply for their tribal ID cards without problems, or?
Oh no, I have a tribal ID card. Like I'm registered to a tribe. I mean, the problem is that I should technically be a part of the Grand Traverse Odawa tribe, but my great grandmother at some point signed a paper that says that she was Potawatomi, and they gave her like some pittance reparation that wasn't the exact amount. But the BIA has that on record, and that makes me not enough to be the part of the tribe that I should be. Even though it has nothing to do with blood quantum, it has nothing to do with genetics, it has nothing to do with reparations, it just has to do what the BIA said whenever they fucking said it. They don't give a fuck.
Can I step in here for a second and ask a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What is this card that you guys are talking about? Do you guys have? Do you?
It's
My grandfather has one. I don't. They don't consider my blood rich enough to have it.
It's like a special card. It qualifies technically as a legal ID, but it's not issued from the U.S. government. Your tribe has their own type of ID because the tribes are dictated differently than the United States laws. And additionally, I don't know if it does anymore. At least mine used to get me into Canada really quickly.
Same. So
Oh,
each
really?
each tribe is, yeah, especially if you live on the border. So I'm
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same with,
Especially
the friend
if
over
you're,
here.
especially if your tribe, like, yeah, you're from New York. Like my tribe is from like northern Wisconsin and northern Michigan, so they are obviously just like, oh yeah, you're Native American, you might as well go across the border.
Huh.
So
because
if
I've heard it's
you're-
like really hard to get into Canada.
No.
From-
Well, it depends. Well, I've never had a problem with it. So every
As long as you're not white.
tribe is guaranteed. Every tribe is guaranteed sovereignty. Like every tribe that the United States recognizes, which is another quagmire in itself because it's oftentimes a little more intricate than what could be recognized. It's its own sovereign nation, right? So you're allowed to have your own. Like
Right.
me and the gentleman who spoke before me, mine lets me just go to and from Canada very easily, at least by car. I've never tried by plane.
Yeah,
And it
I
also
just traveled.
qualifies you for certain benefits. So my tribe was in upstate New York. So I would have, for any of the, I think it's SUNY is what they call the state schools in upstate New York. Like I would have qualified for reduced tuition and certain tax. I would have had certain tax advantages in New York if I lived there.
Right.
So yeah,
like,
yeah, tribal IDs grant you certain benefits, but how difficult they are to qualify varies. Like right now, my tribe will only take 50% and above, and then that might be some of the problems that the person who expressed that he did have an issue qualifying for. But that'll have to change in the future because it's becoming so increasingly rare to find someone who's 100%.
yeah. No, like, I should technically be a quarter Ottawa, which would qualify me for the blood quantum, but they're only counting me as like an eighth. And I mean, he's totally right. I mean, you can only go so far with like genocide and stuff to have like our people be like wholly Native American. I mean, how many whole Native Americans do you meet? None. You don't meet any of them. They've all been assimilated, either by choice or by the boarding schools.
Oh, but back to the money from the government that Cody was talking about earlier. At least in the Spokane innovation, the government gives the tribe as a whole money, and then once a year the tribe sends out a check to everyone. And I don't get it because I don't qualify because my blood's not rich enough. But my grandfather gets.
Shenanigans.
So, forgive me for asking or interrupting, but is that you don't qualify the decision of your tribe, or is that the decision of the
Decision
BIA?
of my tribe.
BIA.
Yeah.
The tribe for us.
Really? The tribe
Yeah,
has cut you off?
for
Yeah.
me, it's the tribe as well.
My dad didn't used to qualify, but there weren't enough Indians. They decided one day, and so then they decided my dad does qualify now.
Well, shit. So, what
Yeah.
may I ask? And if I'm ever prying into something that is not like you don't want to talk about, please feel free to tell me to go fuck myself. And you can use those words, and that's fine. Why would they not qualify a person? Why would they decline you? Out of curiosity, like I don't understand the. I don't understand what the card's about. Really,
I don't know about them, but on my reservation, it's greed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They want to
because
save money. It's
the
like
less people
if
they
you
have,
have
the less money they have to give out.
right, like if you have 1,000 people to give, like casino, I don't know, like dividends to, it's
Yeah.
far less than 1,500 people. So they look as far as they can to cut out the people that they believe shouldn't have any reparations. Regardless of like how much involvement in the tribe they have.
And
Interesting.
also, I think it's a bit of pride. Like you want, it to be as pure as it possibly can be, because that's more, what they were before, we invaded and, mixed everything up, and that's what they're trying to get back to in the reservations is, living off the land and trying to be as, Native American as possible. And if you're a quarter blood, it's not what it was. I don't know.
I don't know. Like I've been to like our reservation, Shabby Town, like a few times, and like seriously, every time it's like going to a favela. Like they're like the buildings are straight up made of like wood and tin, and they've got like their own like schoolhouse that's made of the same shit, and they're really proud of it. And as for me coming in, and both of my parents worked their way out of the tribes to become doctors, and to come in and see that type of stuff, it's really shocking. I don't know what to do.
Like I don't know about your reservations, but like the life on the reservation is really bad for kids growing up. The well-to-do kids will do their best to get off the reservation as soon as they can.
Oh yeah, definitely. But the problem is the ones that get trapped. Like they can't leave, they're stuck in poverty, and they always turn to drugs.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm going to add another
Always
person
is
to
a
this
really-
call. Okay.
Yeah,
Go for
always. I would be really reluctant to use words like always, but like my father, for example, like my father met my mother, so I'm half, and then my mom is just sort of a mix of Western European. But yeah, as soon when he was 18, so that must have been. Fuck, I can't even. I'm not even gonna waste my time doing math. But he joined the Marine Corps. That was like a lot of them joined the military.
Ira Hayes.
What?
Ira Hayes. He was Native American who raised flag at Iwo Jima.
Oh,
Shit.
yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah, there was a movie that I watched about a year ago. It was about
hello.
Oh.
Hi.
We have a new person.
Howdy, bud.
Yeah. Hi.
So-
Can I like share my family story real quick? Just
Yeah,
Go
go
for
for
it.
it, man.
Yeah.
so I'm like
Native American hour.
1/8. Yeah, I'm like 1/8 Cherokee, but I've never really been taught or have even learned anything about like anything about where I'm from. Like, I don't even remember like where in the U.S. the Cherokees are found, because like my great grandmother, who is the person I'm Cherokee through, was like treated kind of badly as a child, and when she turned like 18, the very first thing she even thought about doing was like getting as far away from the reservation as she could. And I've always been taught through like my whole life, oh yeah, don't learn about our culture because it haunts us. And my great grandmother has refused to even tell my own grandmother um very much about it, because like of how bad it was for her like growing up. And like I don't even know anything about the tribes, and I've never really heard anything very much about my own. Like the only thing me and my brother were ever told was, oh yeah, you two are Cherokee, don't look into it very much. And like we're an eighth Cherokee, so we don't qualify for any of those blood things. But we've always been told like don't look into it because it was scary. And like my great grandmother had a very hard time growing up as a child because of it. But she's like 100 something right now, so it was a long time ago. But for her, but it was like really, it scarred her slightly. Or
Well, it wasn't
a
great
lot.
for a lot of people her age. What's your question, though? You called in with a question specifically.
Well, not really. I just kind of wanted to share my story, and really, I wanted to know more about like your guys' tribes and anything about the tribes. Because,
I
like I
mean,
said, I don't know
like,
anything.
I'm kind of in your situation. Like, my great grandfather realized that the boarding schools were coming and whatnot. So he raised his children as white as possible. He grew up in a logging camp. Like, he didn't let them wear or talk Native American. Um, he forced my grandfather into basketball, which was the popular white sport at the time. And he used to beat my grandfather for being Native American at all. Um, I assume out of love, because uh, if if the United States government came to them and thought that he was too Native American, they would have taken him away, and they would have sent him to boarding schools. And the problem with the boarding schools is they would like cut off the mail and shit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a good place the whole time. So, like, my entire family has just been suctioned down the be white American hole the whole time. And the only thing that we have left is, like, our relatives, the artwork from our relatives, and the shame. Just the
Yeah.
shame.
The
And
only
I mean,
thing,
that's
or
that's like how a lot of families had to survive because there's so much persecution going on. Like there's no way you could be proud of your heritage because you know you get yourself killed for it. It was that bad.
yeah,
I can chime in sort of on the opposite end of the spectrum, and it's the opposite in a couple of very interesting ways. So, my family didn't leave where they were from, and they largely stuck to their roots. Like the Mohawk people and the Iroquois Nation, I guess at large, but specifically the Mohawk people were known as sort of like they were very good folks with steel. Like you'll oftentimes hear stories about the Mohawk people being credited for building some of the bigger buildings in New York. My grandfather, so my pop's dad, my dad was 100% Mohawk. He was a police officer in upstate New York. He never left. My grandmother taught at the school on the reservation. We have more family members that we can meet that sort of stayed there. So we didn't have this sort of exodus for whatever reason, and the people, sort of trying to escape. And I mean, to be absolutely honest, I don't know what accounts for that. So I sort of have the inverse issue where a lot of you people have, or like my dad joined the Marine Corps to sort of get away from the reservation very early. And then he met my mom, who's white, and my parents split up when I was like relatively young. So I had sort of the opposite, where I self-identify as Native American, and I'm actually extremely proud of it. But in the course of like my divorce, I stayed with my mom. So that became sort of an issue where like I didn't have a lot of the same things that my folks over my father's side grew up on, like with the res. So even though I self-identify as Native American, because I think if you've met me, you can sort of see I have like very dark hair. My skin is sort of naturally tanned. Um, so I never had that shame thing. I think it's something to be very proud of, and I personally encourage you. I mean, like you can start doing the research right, today as soon as you're done. I think your grandparents probably suffered through some absolutely unspeakable things, but I think one of the ways you can do that their suffering justice is just sort of do your own personal research to figure it out, because I think it is something incredible.
I think that there needs to be more. Like, I love the whole personal research thing. I think that's essential, but I think in terms of the general public, like they need to talk about it more. I mean, like let's be real. My entire 6th grade, literally the entire thing was about the Holocaust. Right?
Your entire
And
6th grade year was about the Holocaust?
okay, I'm from Wisconsin. It's a very German state. Don't judge. But I guess they felt really bad about it. But, but like they spend an entire week on the Native American stuff. Like they don't spend any amount of time discussing about what has happened to the Native Americans. Like you have a day on the Trail of Tears. A day? Really?
I had like a week, and that's only because I go to a private school.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I'm in Orange County, California, and we actually like spent I think 2 months for both 7th and 8th grade on it, and we spent a lot of time in the U.S. history class in high school
really?
on it. Yeah, we actually
Damn.
I was surprised.
Then I retract all my previous statements. Everybody move to California and don't live in Wisconsin
Yeah.
because they
It's not
won't
worth
give you shit.
retracting. It's not worth retracting, but I think it's different for every person.
It's
I mean,
still,
for real, like,
it's
I
still,
remember
like,
having-
whitewashed a lot, but I mean, like they did, talk about it a good bit.
Right, but I mean, I remember having like social studies class and then them just glossing over like, yeah, we killed all these people. But the land is ours now. It's cool, okay?
It's
I
not.
think-
It's not a proud moment in our history. Like I can see why we're kind of embarrassed about it. Don't really want to shed too much light onto it because
I mean, I can
really was a
understand that, but
genocide.
so many people ignore it. They just straight up ignore it.
Yeah.
Well, here in Idaho, I grew up in Idaho, and we had a lot when we were doing like state history. There's a lot of Native American stuff because Chicago is from here, and that was a big thing about Lewis and Clark. So when you're doing like the state history back in like 4th grade, we went over a lot of Indian stuff because they kind of glorified it then, but they never talked
Yeah,
about
that's-
darker side.
That stuff too. Like, I remember everybody drawing cards to pick a Native American tribe to represent, and I didn't get my tribe. It was really sad.
That's
So many white kids.
That's a little insensitive.
Yes,
I mean, I
so
think
many
one of
white
the
kids. So many white kids.
I'm gonna bring it back to like the realm of politically appropriate. I think one of the things that really frustrates me as a person who self-identifies as Native American is how, and this actually might be inappropriate, but we're sort of lumped in with one another. How, as a race, I think how underrepresented we are and how oft forgot we are. I think especially with how few
Oh,
and far
yeah.
between we tend to be. When it often blows my mind. Like I'll sit in a conversation about something as absolutely asinine as whether it is or isn't appropriate for X team's mascot to be this, and you just like have these people just sort of like they just sort of yell things at you, and you're just like, well, like it's actually I think sometimes people are just a little oblivious to sort of how absolutely horrific the last couple of centuries are, which I think is maybe not their fault a lot of the time. And I think largely because history is written by the winners. A lot of this is glossed over
Yeah.
a lot, but there are like a lot of contemporary issues that are just sort of like so foreign because I think like as a race, Native American is just brought up so seldomly. I think the atrocities of World War II are well documented, and I think as we look over America's history with slavery, it's well documented, and I I don't think there's I don't think it would be appropriate to compare and say like that there's maybe like a this deserves more attention. Um, but it is interesting, I think, how much it is just sort of as a nation it's forgotten about. And one of the weird things that I had a lot of problems with growing up was, like I said, I self-identify as Native American, but I'm only 50% Native American. So you get the like where you're only half, but then you're like, Jesus Christ, there's only like maybe another 100,000 of us that are maybe 100% Native American in the entire world left, if that. Like, so it's just like it becomes quite this quagmire, because like it becomes, where do you stand up for yourself, right? And then inversely, with how much that you as a culture have been taken advantage of, when is it appropriate to relent? So.
I mean, I just was always taught to kind of assimilate slash like watch underneath. I mean, I don't know. It's like your entire family tells you to assimilate to this culture, but also to not do the same thing. Right? Does anybody get me?
Yeah, like I said,
Kind of.
my grandparents and parents and great grandparents all told me, don't even look into being a Native American. You are like Irish now. Don't even look into it.
I mean, I don't know. For my family, um, it like there was always that pride that we were Native American. Like it's always been a part of our culture, and I've heard a bunch of stories about it, and I don't know, but it's definitely. I guess I'm a bit removed. I'm only 19, so I'm not like I think it's a lot less of an issue now.
I'm only
Whereas
16.
before, are you?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
I don't
I'm
know.
I'm I'm 22, and like I'm talking from like going to my tribe and like talking to the people, and like even the people who speak the language will tell me you don't want to learn this because
Yeah.
it's a waste of goddamn time. Like there's like 4 or 5 people who know the language fluently, but they won't teach it to anybody because they're practical.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, so my even my dad, who's 100% knows a little bit of the language. My grandma knows it. In my tribe, matriarchy was more important than a lot of others. And that
Nice.
thing, it's like it's tough. You know what I mean? Because certain parts of your heritage become blocked off, just cause. I mean, like our languages are dying, just left and right.
Oh yeah, totally.
I
They're
don't.
already
Yeah.
dead.
Yeah, I'm 50%. I don't know uh, the few words that I was taught. I don't remember anymore. It's just
Straight up, like I know like hello and goodbye in my language.
I can't even remember those, man. And I was at the reservation like a couple of years ago with a handful of people that spoke them.
I've never even heard the language.
It's just becoming one of those bizarre things. I think one of the saddest things though is like you get to see your culture and heritage just disappear before your eyes, and I think that's actually one of the saddest things.
Yeah.
I remember being 50% as a kid, and then I would hang out with like sort of like my father's contemporaries or like people like on his lineage line in the family tree who are also 50%. And I just recently married, so our kids will be 25%.
Congrats.
And yeah, well, thank you. But it doesn't, it just gets smaller and smaller from that. And I think, America's a melting pot, and this is like a beautiful thing, but it is like sort of sad, just sort of, you know. So imagine, for
Right,
example,
it could be a not forced melting pot.
well, Well, like let's think about this. Like this is, I'll put it in the most sentimental way I know possible. That sort of chokes me up. So I remember, and me and my father aren't very close. I remember everything my father's taught me about my tribe. Right, and my kids are going to get what I can remember from what he taught about me, and just so on and so on and so on, and then it's just gone.
You need an elder, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, like the natives weren't blessed with Google Docs to write this all down, so we're gonna have to.
Bark. Google Bark. They wrote it down on.
Like,
Most of them didn't even have their
on
own language.
the birch bark, and everybody got it.
Someone said this
It's
in
like
chat.
smoke signals.
Someone said this in chat, which I thought was really interesting. Someone said just Google it, but like imagine how sad that is when you have to Google something to tell your son about who they are as a person. Like that's actually really fucked up. It just is.
I mean, you gotta do it anyway. I mean, you're like, hey son, you're Cherokee. Don't Google it.
That pretty much was what my dad told me.
I mean, my dad never told me to Google it, but he was like, well, at least my grandfather was like, you can Google it, but don't follow any of it at all, or you'll be kidnapped.
It seems that you guys are having pretty different experiences, because I grew up in California, in like Central California, Santa Barbara area, and like my school was built right next to an old Chumash Indian site, and the Channel Islands across from, like we could see from our beach, was where the islands in the what's that book called? The Island of the Blue Dolphin. And there are cave paintings up in the hills that are like barred off, where you would go on class field trips to take a look at, and occasionally people like dig up random artifacts just around. So for us, like it was talked about. At least the local legends and information were, and we have a mission in Santa Barbara where, of course, like the missions were built by the Spanish for the Indians here, and so for us, like it was actually a pretty significant part of our history in elementary school was, talking about what happened around here. And after elementary school, it kind of stopped being talked about, except in textbooks for, like, oh well, for pre-Civil War history and slight post-Civil War history. But I'm really amazed to see how different it is across all these areas. John, where did you grow up? Do you mind if I ask?
I'm still growing up out in Florida.
Okay, you're out in Florida?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've got Florida, New York, Wisconsin, California, and
Washington State.
Washington
Wisconsin
State.
/ Michigan.
Okay, but that's, that area. That's pretty much all over the place. That's like every geographical region.
They call it the bitch face Northwest.
Okay. No, I mean, like, between the five of you, that's a pretty broad region of territory. I'm surprised. I guess I shouldn't be, but I'm surprised and interested to see how different it's been handed down to you in these different areas, and how, some of you have felt maybe persecuted, while others of you have felt maybe just kind of left in the dust.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like a large part of it was the fact that my great-grandfather grew up he grew up and he had my grandfather in a logging camp. Which, I mean, Native Americans were not treated good in logging camps, like, at all. And, like, a testament to that is Native Americans were the last people to vote. Like, straight up. Like, you can get black people to vote, you can get women to vote, but if you're Native American, fuck you, until, like, what, 1924?
I actually don't know the date on that.
So,
That sounds about right.
I have a question then about citizenship, because the reservations.
You weren't a citizen. You were
muted. Yeah,
Native
he's right,
Americans were the
24.
last citizen.
Well, so my question is, the reservations are non-U.S. government, non-U.S. land. They are land of the tribes that own them, right?
They're sovereign, sort of, kind of.
They're
Sort of, kind of
the
sovereign.
government still owns them, but the tribes can make their own laws on them.
Yes.
Mhm. It's
Until
still under
it's-
U.S. control, but it's like,
it-
you know,
the
hey,
nearest
here's land, do what
the
you
nearest
want.
approximation I can make is like when certain states have, for example, like California had medical marijuana uh, moons and moons ago, right? But occasionally, when the federal government would want to intervene, they could
Did
intervene.
you just say moons and moons?
Yes, that's what I said. In a conversation in the Native American hour, I actually probably could have picked a better way to describe years and years ago.
No,
And
that
that
was-
wasn't intentional. That wasn't intentional. But yeah, it's one of those things. Like you're sovereign, but like if the federal government ever needs to step in the same way, if a state makes a law that supersedes the federal government, it's okay until the federal government wants to step in. That tends to be how it works.
Right.
So we're sovereign, comma, sort of, kind of.
And so then in the 20s ish, you got. So does that mean you are U.S. citizens as well, or do you have a U.S. passport?
Yeah.
If you're born,
Yeah.
Yes, if you're
I
born
mean,
on
I heard somewhere that like the Sioux were trying to get away with their own passport. Is that right?
that was right, and then
Yeah.
the rest of the world wasn't as keen as it on it rather as the Sioux were. That was a couple of
Which
years
is
ago. That's actually really
shit.
good. That's such
Because
a
that would be
weird
super
story.
cool, and I would never have to check my passport ever.
And that's such a weird story. Like that was such a small story. Yeah, the Sioux tried to do their own passport, but the rest of the world were not about it. That's so
Because
bizarre.
we're
That was
all
such a
sovereign-
weird.
We're all a sovereign nation in quotes, right? In
Yes.
quotes, and
Yeah.
then only quotes only.
Yeah. Again, that's so bizarre. That's so weird that you heard that. That was such a small story, like fucking 4 years ago. That's nuts. Yeah, but yeah, good,
No,
good on you.
I'm
I
looking
that
at
I
this
was-
too, and I didn't even
I
know
was-
that.
I was so excited for them to win that case. Like, oh my god, everybody gets their own passport.
Yeah, not the
That'd
case.
be really cool.
So does that mean prior to the 20s? Okay. Also, this question has been asked in chat a few times. What is the appropriate term? What do we call you? Like Native American?
No
American
one on
Indian? What
my
what
reservation
what the fuck
cares.
is the appropriate term to call you guys?
I
No
don't
one on
think
my
it,
reservation cares. They don't
like,
care.
yeah, it doesn't. Whatever, however you phrase it, as long as it's not legitimately racist, no one really,
Okay,
thinks
so
twice
American
about it.
Indian is like
Just
legit.
call us
Yeah.
straight up
Well,
Indians because
mean,
that gets
about, like,
confusing.
For the
Right.
Washington Redskins, I don't know a single Indian that
No.
is not racist. I don't know
I
a
think
single
it's-
one.
I heard that the Washington Redskins were gonna change their name to the less racist DC Redskins.
I think it's racist as fuck. I think a lot of that shit needs to change personally. So that's one person you can have advocate for it. It's the same way you would address anyone like when you meet a new person, you would call them Mister or Mrs.
Yeah.
Try not to talk so
I
loud.
think-
Also,
I think Native American is a pretty strong point. I think in recent years, Indigenous folks of Canada, for example, and the folks in the northern part of Mexico, I think calling people Indigenous North Americans has also become more appropriate. American Indian has become a more appropriate thing.
I don't like Indian. That's the thing.
I think Indian should
It
be
just gets confusing.
like
Yeah.
It's a
I think you.
misnomer. It's a misnomer.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
American Indian sounds like, at least from my perspective, like a really solid term, because Indigenous North American is just a fucking mouthful.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know.
Yeah.
Like that goes all the way up to Alaska.
We deserve
Right, but-
those extra syllables.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
But then the American Indian just kind of like cuts out Canada, cuts out anything south of the U.S. border too, and there's like, it's not just this
No.
one section where the
No.
United States is;
Get 'em.
it's spread across the entire two continents. So I've always been,
I mean-
it's been rough to speak about the native population as a whole.
Canada-
So, American and Indigenous Americans is a pretty solid term in terms of like being able to approach things, at least for me, which is nice.
I like Indigenous Americans, but if it specifically mentions Indians, I'm kind of turned off.
I think Native American works for everything, because
It's-
Canada's still in North America. and it's still, their native population. I don't think that it's too misleading.
It's the
I
natives to the North and South America, the Native
Yeah.
Americans.
Okay,
I
cool.
personally have always liked Native Americans, or Native American, like my folks, and then my grandfather. My grandfather in particular didn't care at all, and so it's one of those things. It's just like like when you meet your girlfriend's dad for the first time, you call him Mister just out of a stab of respect. You know what I mean? Like he'll let you know what he wants to be called, right?
Right.
I think that's the message
David.
you should use. Yeah. Most of us won't want to be called David, but I think that if you went with Native American, you're actually going to be okay.
Cool. So then, was it only in the 20s that Native Americans got a U.S. citizenship, and before that they were non-U.S. citizens?
Yeah, pretty much.
Mhm.
I mean, like, if you Ira Hayes, I said Ira Hayes earlier. He is one of the people who raised the flag on Iwo Jima, for that famous picture. And if you look at the history of Ira Hayes, he was treated like shit, and he died like a drunk in the gutter because that was the way he was treated.
So, was citizenship something that was fought for, kind of just happened, or was it something that was pushed upon Native Americans?
It was something we fought for. It's
Shields
voting
up,
voting rights in
weapons
America are
online.
just absolutely. I mean, like, Washington D.C. for example. If you go from Washington D.C. for the longest, like you were just sort of shit out of luck, even though you were in the nation capital. So,
Weren't we,
but
weren't we the last people to vote too? Like after women, like
Yeah,
the
women
last
was-
people to vote.
Well,
I think
I think
women
the
was
issue is
1923, if I'm not mistaken. But if I don't want to,
But I think it was an issue of being non-citizen. You can't vote if you're not a citizen.
Mhm.
So it wasn't like you're citizens but you
Yeah,
can't vote.
no,
It's you just weren't even an American.
Act was in like 24 year, I think so.
Okay. Well,
They need all those bodies for World War II.
That's true. That is that's true. It certainly you can draft a lot more people if you have more people to draft.
You have a yeah.
Yeah. And my
So-
gramps fought in World War II.
so I'd like to maybe take a little bit more focused of a direction as we approach the end of this conversation. But I'm not really sure where we want to focus on. There's been some talk about, when I go on to teach my kids, I might have to Google this, or my kid's only going to be 25%. What is your plan, or at least outlook on the future? Is it really so bleak as everything's going to just kind of dry up and evaporate, or is there some plan or some option out there that maybe isn't solidified yet where things can be better? Like, what? How do you feel about the future of your people?
I think the history, like, what happened will always be there. But like the heritage is going to kind of fade into the background. And that's, the most depressing part for me. But, I don't see any way of avoiding it personally.
Yeah, for real.
From my experience from being on the reservation, the best thing I think for the kids is I think they shouldn't do schooling on the reservation. They need to get to public schools, because if they get stuck on the reservation, they go to alcohol really fast usually, and yeah.
I mean, I don't know about that, but I guess. I mean, my entire family has been like the poster child for alcohols, so.
Cody,
joke.
you bring us up to a lighter note to end on.
I'll do my best. I mean,
Let's talk about Adventure Time.
I really, the time I've spent on the reservation has been really enlightening. I think there are, for as many, generic things that are levied against the Native Americans, like alcoholism or sort of, I levied wasn't. I mean, like for how impoverished reservations tend to be, that wasn't levied on them. But there are just some like really enlightening things. I think one of these absolutely bizarre things that was just passed to me was the idea of reciprocity. Like the idea that you just want to share experiences with one another is certainly something that I credit to my the Native American side of my family. It's very difficult because it's one of those things, like those numbers can't get bigger just by the way that heritage works. They're going to be, my kids are going to be less Native American than I am. That's just how it works. But I think there are certain things that everyone can take apart from that culture. And I think especially as we go forward and we sort of, as a culture, realize like this is something that is disappearing, that everyone is just really going to be really eager to take advantage of, especially as minute as they have it in their culture. One of the things
I feel like everybody knows it's disappearing, and they're just like watching.
I don't think it's something that like I don't think that's. I think that I think that disappearing is true, but I don't think that's necessarily something that happens. Like my kid will be less Native American than I am, and one of the things that I really struggled with, like I said, is I self-identified as a Native American, and it was really easy when I grew up in the desert, and I was really dark just because that's what the sun made me, and I went to college.
Yeah,
and,
man, I brown like a paper bag.
Yeah, so I grew up in I went to school in Northern California. I was like less tan, and I was one of the things that I had to insist. It was kind of interesting. There was, people could tell because my eyes are brown and my hair is dark. I don't know. I think it's going to be one of the things that we need to revel in a weird way. I know some of you guys expressed that your family had really negative experiences just based off their heritage, but I think
I'm like the bitter, cynical Native American.
I think in the next generation, it's really going to be one of these things that we really revel in. Like I said, I'm half, and I self-identify as Native American. My kids will be Native American, and I'll do my best to teach everything I can about their culture that is slowly disappearing. And I really hope that our public education systems in the next generation or so do their best to pay homage to this absolutely great, phenomenal culture that we can contribute to a lot of things like agriculture or democracy. I really think that it deserves a nod, and I think that right now it doesn't get it. And with everyone else on the panel, I just encourage you to share what you can with your kids, because the most absolute horrible thing in history, not even Native American history, but the most absolute horrible thing that can happen in history is for something to be forgotten. So, there we go.
For sure.
I think I have just one last question for you. When other peoples came to this country, we had the Irish that settled together with the Irish, and the French would settle with the French, and the Germans would settle with the Germans. And we still have to this day kind of regionalized people. So you go to South Boston, it's all Irish. You go out to New Jersey, it's all Italian. You go out to this place, it's all that. When the native population here kind of got splintered and separated all across the country into these different reservations, and then it seems kind of got what was the word you were using earlier, Drew? Assimilated. So my question is, have you heard other people talk about, or has there ever been any possibility of founding a city that's not on a reservation, that is a home to the Native American population? Like, why don't we all move to this area, or move into this region? Was there something in Oklahoma?
Well, that's where the Trail of Tears wins.
Yeah, but I mean,
no, I honestly haven't heard of that. I guess in the duality of my tribes, it's actually been pretty lucky because they have granted them the rights to their previously ancestral land, but I can almost guarantee you that elsewhere it's not been such.
Okay. Just curious on there.
That's a pretty interesting idea, though. Like, if
I mean-
if there were like a end goal that Native American activists would be fighting for, I think that would definitely be up there, because that would be really cool to have our heritage in one place to share with everyone.
I mean, it might be difficult where you're all fight,
Yeah,
where you would
definitely.
have many different cultures because they're very different, right? You're Mohawk, I'm forgetting these names, forgive me, but you'd come in with these kind of a shared past, but still a very different sense of tradition, perhaps between you guys. So I don't imagine it being an easy process, or an easy thing. But I'm curious if it is something that anyone has tried in the past, or if everyone's kind of gone, well, this is our new land that we've been given, and we're separate from the U.S. government, so we're going to stay here. But I'm completely talking out of my ass because I know absolutely nothing here. But what about the option of, moving together onto somewhere else? I don't know.
I disagree
I
adamantly. I think this is it's an interesting idea, but like think about how large America is. Like think about all the infrastructure role problems, even like in esports and weird stuff like this that we have just because America is as large as it is. Like there were certain tribes that just never interacted with one another.
Yeah,
so
they're too ingrained with their identity.
Okay.
Yeah, it would make no sense. Yeah, it would.
From what I remember,
I
there were
think-
tribes that outright hated each other.
Of
Yeah,
course.
it would be
Yeah.
the
I think
equivalent
also
of
that-
getting like a bunch of Europeans from all corners of the continent of Europe to live with one another after America takes it over the next 100 years. Watch out, guys! But like, yeah, like it just makes no sense.
But I mean, all the different Europeans did move together into the United States. I mean, I don't mean to try and trivialize things, but I want to play the devil's advocate here and try and understand this a little bit better because I don't understand.
Correct me if
No,
I'm
it's
wrong,
just-
but
It's too
with
different.
the Trail of Tears and all that, isn't that what the American government did? Is they like took a bunch of different tribes and tried to settle them in one
Yes.
plot of land?
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
basically a
and-
death march.
And
So-
like that caused so much backlash that they had to separate them from there. But like I think they did try that for a little bit and it just didn't work out.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like everyone. Well, at the time of the Trails of Tears, so it's a lot different than it was now. But everyone brings like sort of a different skill set and like their politics were just absolutely different. Like one of the really unique things about Mohawk culture, for example, is like we inherit our clan from the grandmother, so it's like matriarchal. That would never make sense with a lot of the Western tribes, from what I've heard.
Well, like I am from Western tribe, and like you guys are talking about all this suffering that your family or like ancestors had gone through. That never made it to the Western tribes. Like the
Mhm,
Western tribes
yeah.
assimilated immediately. They just peacefully went and then joined with the American government.
Yeah, so it's just it's just different.
Yeah. No. Okay. I'm just. I hope my questions don't offend you. My questions
No,
come
no,
out
no,
of
I
ignorance,
was-
No,
seeking
of course
for
not.
answers. Okay. All right. Well, that's it for Native American Hour here.
This was great. This was actually fantastic. I've gotten so many. Everyone in Twitch chat and everyone on Twitter seems to be really positive, and this is maybe the first time it's ever been addressed. So thank you, Neil. Like this was actually really fucking sick. In your 80th hour, we're almost on your 80th hour. So you, with a mind that is absolutely near melting, I'm sure, like really did fucking something awesome.
Well, you should also thank Drew. He was the one who said, "Hey, can we have a Native American Hour?" Like we were just gonna do. I think we were gonna do Danish. That was all we were gonna do, and then the Swedes were like, "Oh, well, if we're gonna do Danish, we should do Swedish." And then the Germans said, "Well, we should do a German hour." And then it kind of just spiraled, and everyone kept asking for another. Like, "Oh, well, we want our own hour, and we want our hour." And then Drew was like, "Well, can we have one? I don't know if there's any others, but I want it." And so then you guys all came out of the woodwork. I didn't actually imagine that with 1,300 people, 1,400 people, that we'd have 5 people of Native American history watching. I would not have expected that.
One thing I want to bring up, like, in terms of conversations that I'd hear on, a Twitch channel, this is probably pretty down there on stuff that, I would never imagine hearing. So I think that's, hella cool. that you're willing to do this. So props to you, Neil.
Thank you.
Chat, best chat.
Chat, best chat. Tell your friends.
Best chat. Hey, before we go, do the other two guys have native names?
I do not.
Only the
No?
elders in my tribe get names.
Hmm.
Oh, really? That's a bummer.
Like I said,
I remember
stay
the
away.
English version of my name, but I don't remember what it means in. I don't know how to speak it. Yeah, it was like Steve. No. It's a person. It's a scout who lays. He'll put sticks along a trail. So I'm like a trailblazer. Yeah, but I unfortunately don't remember what it is in my language.
Yeah, mine is Samuk, which means the lightning. But in my tribe, it also, you don't name a child until they're a teenager, so the evil spirits will take them away.
Solid. You gotta dodge the evil spirits no matter what, man.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually really good for them.
Especially Apple.
Yeah.
Especially
Gotta
those
get rid of
Saxon
Apple.
spirits.
The mad Saxon spirits.
Mad spirits. Oh, yeah.
That was something
And all
I
those-
missed.
all
Native
those
American.
spirits, all
Native
the spirits
American
from
gods
Poland,
were,
bad luck. Don't drink Sobieski.
Sobieski.
There
What
were some
about
really
Teo?
cool Native American gods we could have gotten into, but
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it would have
there's
taken.
one.
It would have
Like
taken
that.
more than an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna dip. Thank you, like you guys were. It was great talking to you guys. It was also
Oh,
really
yeah,
awesome
for
to have
sure.
this on Twitch.
Nice meeting you guys.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you all
I
for the
didn't
work.
realize that there would be 3 Native Americans. That's really impressive.
5. Okay.
On all of Twitch, there are 5 of us on all of Twitch. We got to stick together, boys.
Well, I don't know. There's 5 of you within 1,400 people, so 5 of you that came forward within
That's really
1,400.
rare, man.
That's
That's
probably
really
Yeah.
rare.
That's probably
Yeah.
an interesting stat that is congruent with the rest of the world of Twitch. But anyway, thank you, Neil, man. Like, best of luck on your journey. I got that article coming out as soon as you finish. You'll probably read it several days after you fall asleep and never wake up. But love you, man. Cheers.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll
Yeah, man.
be sending
Good luck.
spoke signals of peace
It's my pleasure, guys. My pleasure.
that may or may not be containing recreational stuff.
All right. I'll see you guys later. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye. Well, that was educational and informative and surprisingly moving. We were considering going in and just like following up with Danish Hour, but you know what? To the Danes out there, I think we're just gonna maybe go into that tomorrow, and we're gonna like stop with the regional people's hours for until the morning, until the sun comes up in San Francisco on Saturday. Let's just kind of like leave this be for a bit.